You are now listening to theGrio's Black Podcast Network, Black Culture Amplified.
What's up, y'all? You know, when I think about Black people in general, you know, I always say it's giving me melanin. It's giving me pride. It's giving, it's just giving. That's why I want to welcome you to theGrio Daily, the only podcast that will tell you what Black people actually give. Yeah, so today's episode is really not about that phrase. It's an idea that I've been talking about for a long time, and it's the idea of giving, the idea of charity. So we always hear about what Black people need to do. You know, Black people need to do this, Black people need to do that. And some of those things are based on the idea that, like, well, we need to do this in our community. We need to, you know, work on Black crime in our community. When in reality, Black people actually do more about Black on Black crime than any other group in America. Well, how do I know that? So there are studies, like a Pew study, that shows that Black people actually care more. About 87% of Black people think crime or gun violence is a problem, for instance. And about 78% of Black people care that Black Lives Matter or support the idea that Black Lives Matter, which is high, right? But it is the opposite of what white people say when they say, well, instead of worrying about Black Lives Matter, why don't you do more about violence in your community? But we are giving our time and our effort and our money to fight Black on Black crime. You know, everybody knows, like, white people don't even know about Qs or about Deltas. Like when Kamala Harris was running for VP, you know, I remember a white reporter says, why does everybody always squeal at her press conferences? And I was like, oh, she's an AKA. And it was like, yeah, I know she's also known as other things. And I was like, well, it's hard to explain to white people. But anyway, there are Black fraternal organizations like, you know, the Divine Nine, Elks, Masons, like Eastern Stars, who give time and money to fight the same things that white people keep telling us we need to work on, right? As a matter of fact, there are studies, like numerous studies, every time someone does one of these studies to try to figure out charitable giving or philanthropy or volunteering, it turns out that Black people volunteer more often than any other demographic. We volunteer the second most time to Hispanics. We give more money. Black people, there are studies that show from the Washington Post. There's another by the AARP. There are numerous charitable organizations that have done these studies that show that Black people give a higher percentage of their wealth to community organizations, community charities. And most of these, like religious organizations, are number one among every group. But when it comes to social or community organizations, Black people rank way above everybody else. Like, it ain't even close, right? And especially when you look at a percentage of their wealth. So if Elon Musk gave $1 million to Black Lives Matter, it wouldn't be as much as somebody who makes $50,000 a year giving $100 to a charity that fights crime. And then, like, you can pause this podcast and do me a favor, right? Like, go to Facebook or go to Eventbrite, right? If you don't have a Facebook account, because, like, who doesn't have a Facebook account? And go to the events section and just look up how many Stop the Violence events are in your area in the next 2 weeks or the next month. Let's do a month. Or look up how many anti-gun rallies are in your community in the next month. Now look up how many Black Lives Matter marches are in your community in the next month. Like, you see the difference, right? Like, it's almost 10 times more stuff fighting crime, but they don't think we're giving our attention or giving our time to it. And I understand why they don't, because the people who say that are not in Black communities. They don't go to church with us and hear every preacher say, you know, we need to stop killing each other. They don't hear it at our Thanksgiving tables because they eat with white people, right? They don't see the Stop the Violence marches and cookouts and fish fries because they be at white stuff. They be at I don't know what white people go to. I don't know, Civil War reenactments, square dancing competition. I don't know, I'm just spitballing here. But they do not see that we're giving our efforts to the thing that they tell us we need to give our efforts about. But here's the thing, right? If we wanted to solve crime in our communities, if we wanted to improve on education, if we really wanted to work on all of these things, there are a million things that we would have to do before we could even address what Black people need to do. Because when people say focus on education or focus on hard work, first we would have to find out why Black people are unemployed at twice the rate throughout the history of this country as white people. We have to figure out why white people throw resumes in the trash when it has a Black sounding name. There are studies that show that. We'd have to find out why Black people with the same education and experience are underemployed compared to whites. We'd have to show why they're underpaid less than whites. Because if you just say work hard and we ain't getting the same pay, you sound dumb. You're giving stupid. You're giving ignorance. And if we want to stop Black on Black crime, before we get to, I don't know what they think we're supposed to do. I don't know, put on a cape and go learn karate so we can fight evil at night. I don't know. Like if we were supposed to do that, well, first thing we'd have to do is we'd have to find an effective way to police. We'd have to equalize the criminal justice system. We'd have to use strategies that actually work to stop crime. Education, poverty are more connected to crime than, I don't know, how many people in uniforms have guns on their hips. We have to do that before we even get to what Black people need to do. And I do not know what Black people need to do because, like, me and criminals don't really kick it that often that they tell me the secrets to stopping crime. So I don't kind of know it. Maybe I could research that. Maybe that's what Black people need to do. But if not, if you say what Black people need to do is just focus on crime, who do they think we are, Black Batman? Like, do I have an Iron Man suit in my closet that y'all didn't tell me about? Maybe it's at the dry cleaners. Because if not, you're giving dumb. You're giving racism. You're giving white supremacists. You're giving excuses that don't look at structural problems instead of blaming Black people. You're giving white. You're giving the essence of a person who doesn't download this podcast, who doesn't subscribe, who doesn't download that theGrio app, and who doesn't tell their friends about it. You're giving someone who's new here. So you might not know that we end every podcast with a Black saying. And today's Black saying is, you're giving everything but equality. We'll see you next time on theGrio Daily. If you like what you heard, please give us a 5-star review, download the theGrio app, subscribe to the show, and share it with everyone you know. Please email all questions, suggestions, and compliments to podcast@thegrio.com.
You are now listening to theGrio's Black Podcast Network, Black Culture Amplified.
The 80s gave us unforgettable songs from Bob Marley, De La Soul, and Public Enemy.
I'm a Black man, and I can never be a veteran.
Being Black the 80s is a podcast docuseries hosted by me, Touré, looking at the most important issues of the 80s through the songs of the decade. A decade when crack kingpins controlled the streets, but lost their humanity.
You couldn't be like no soft, smiling, happy-go-lucky drug dealer. You had to suppress that.
It was a time when disco was part of gay liberation.
It provided the information to counter narratives that were given to gay people by the straight world.
This is the funkiest history class you'll ever take. Join me, Touré, for Being Black the 80s on the theGrio Black Podcast Network or wherever you listen to podcasts.